So I never thought I'd see the day that we would get a John Carpenter game that isn't based around one of his movies. Obviously, this kind of takes elements from certain parts of his movie and his sort of directing style. But I thought when this was coming out, this was really interesting, and maybe this was going to be like cross promoted with like a movie or something that he has coming out. Maybe there is, and I'm just completely flying under the radar with that. But when I first saw this and I started seeing the gameplay of it, I'm like, okay, this looks actually kind of interesting. So I started downloading the demo, and if you guys haven't done so already, the demo is currently available on Steam right now for everybody to play. It is essentially a four-player co-op mode of like zombies, hordes, but they kind of have its own twist and take on it that I'm going to get into here in a second. But and quite honestly, I don't really know if John Carpenter's involved in this game in any sort of way outside of his just name and recognition itself. But and also quite honestly, I haven't necessarily seen anything that kind of makes me think that he is involved. He hasn't necessarily come out. And like I said, maybe I'm missing these, but I tried looking everywhere online. I didn't see him mention any of this, so I don't know if it's just purely a marketing thing, which it might be, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. Um, but yeah, this game is being made by Saber Interactive. It is who are most recently known for Space Marine 2, World War Z, Expedition Mud Runners, a couple other Expedition games, and just a wide variety of games. Right now, they're in the process of working on the new Turok game as well as the new John Wick game. So I believe they have like 13 different studios. But quite honestly, this development team, for me at least recently, has been absolutely awesome. I've loved everything that they've come out with recently, at least in the shooter space. I Space Marine 2 is one of like by far top 2020 decade game for me personally. It's just a game that really spoke to me. I thought that game was absolutely incredible and amazing. World War Z was a really fun one, but obviously you can tell it's kind of at the infancy of maybe what they wanted to do, which is now where they're at with this game with Toxic Commando. And they took elements from, quite honestly, those previous two games with the Swarm engine. So the Swarm engine is this proprietary engine that they use where I don't know how they're able to do it, but basically creates these massive, massive swarms, which you'll see in the gameplay here. It just, they're coming from everywhere. They like, I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands of enemies coming, but they do it in a way to where it doesn't necessarily like completely bog down your system. I don't know how if they're doing it like client side or however they might be doing it server side, but it's quite honestly a very impressive engine and how they're able to kind of showcase the ability of what it could do without really needing a high-end system. And with this game, I actually found myself running it pretty well, and I have a pretty mid-range system. But like I said, I love the Swarm engine. I think it's extremely unique. There's nothing else really like it out there that I can at least think of. And it's kind of what kind of puts them out above the rest. And I'm really curious to see how that's going to work when we look into their future games, which we'll talk about later. But as for this game kind of has your four main classes. You have the like your medic, you have like your brute, your ammo guy, you have you know the gist. It's kind of like that traditional thing. And as for the gameplay and the actual gunplay of the game, it feels great. Like it genuinely feels really good. This is the first FPS that I've played from them. I've A lot of the other games that we played, like the two that I mentioned, have all been third person. I do know they added a first person to World War Z, but it was clearly a very tacked on feature. But like honestly, playing this game, the gunplay feels really, really good. It looks like it could really compete with some of the other dogs in the space if we're just talking about the pure FPS controller and the shooting mechanics. And the guns also feel super satisfying. And so far, from what we've seen from the weapon customization, it's pretty in depth. It's pretty nice. You can put a plethora of different attachments on it. There's not too much upgrading within those attachments, but to me, quite honestly, I'm okay with that. I think the idea of just being able to customize a gun the way you like and then going out there with it is all I need for me. And I like how there's tons of stuff that you can unlock within the game and within this weapon customization and loadouts, because one of the downsides to a lot of games like this is that it kind of lacks the ability to really upgrade yourself in a very meaningful way that makes a difference. Now, like I said, this is just a demo, so I haven't had a chance to play too much of it, and I didn't want to necessarily spoil myself with the ability of what you're able to do in this game. But so far, this looks pretty good. The visual style reminds me a lot of Back for Blood, but obviously a lot more detailed in that sense, because Back for Blood was running on a previous engine. I believe that was running on Unreal Engine 4. This one's running on their own proprietary one. But you could tell it kind of has that like overgrown look that we've seen with Back for Blood. or like Evil West, if you know that game, kind of like that, like roots and stuff growing everywhere. Very, very similar to that. But this game, quite honestly, is like a mashup of World War Z, Call of Duty Outbreak from Cold War, Killing Floor, Left 4 Dead, with those elements of Mud Runner from their previous games. And it's kind of cool to see how not only are they implementing other games in the genre and what they do in their kind of gameplay loop, but also like, hey, what can we bring from our current properties that necessarily wouldn't traditionally put into the genre and put it here? And the driving mechanics is such a cool, interesting idea that they did here with with what they had with their Mud Runner and Expedition games, and to add that into a zombie game, which quite honestly makes sense as you're going from place to place and area to area. It's going to be outrun. It's not all going to be clean streets. You're not going to be able to jump, and having the ability to kind of the potential of being stuck or having to you get this winch on the car where you can like winch doors off cars or winch trunks off cars or just get yourself out of the mud with because of the horde coming. It's such a cool, interesting concept that we haven't necessarily seen before in this genre. And like I said, the cars kind of have this more realistic feel. They're a little heavier, they're a little clunkier, but not too much to where it's annoying. It's not too realistic, it's not too simulatory, but it does add a lot of elements like that. Like especially being you have to repair the car to get it running again. You have to give it gas. You have to give it ammo in the turret, and how you have to then find spare parts around the map to get this. So essentially, how this game really plays out is that just like Cold War Outbreak, you have this big open, kind of smallish open world, open zone area with different points of interest scattered throughout it. And your job is to go complete the specific side quests and quests that you have to do, as well as maybe visit some other points of interest so you can gain more loot. Because where the loot becomes very important is that once you complete those objectives, you then go to what's kind of like a final holdout where you have to hold out this massive horde, and that's where the swarms start coming in. So they kind of promote the idea of like, hey, you want to try to go all throughout the world, get everything that you can, because otherwise you're going to be shorthanded when it comes to the final stand. Like I said, so far the technical performance seems to be pretty decent. I haven't tried this on my Steam Deck at all, but I can imagine there's a world where low end PCs kind of struggle because with my mid range build, it's okay, it's decent. I get around 60 frames, and I'm playing at ultra wide 1440p. So take that with what it is, but I do have to use some AI upscaling. But I would say it's pretty comparable to like a Space Marine 2 performance if you're familiar with that at all. Now the big thing is how does this compare to other games in the genre? And like I said, there's still more to be seen. This is kind of my first impressions, but it's going to have to compete with the likes of Helldivers 2, Space Marine 2, even somehow Left 4 Dead 2, which is still, I don't want to say somehow, that game is amazing, but it's still retaining a player base that it's directly trying to get after. And I think this game is doing a really good job of, so far from what I've played, trying to separate itself by adding a bunch of different elements that really make it different and unique, especially considering that the bust that Killing Floor 3 was in at launch, that I think this is something that this game can kind of take advantage of, and maybe pull some of those fans away. Like I said, and what I kind of reiterate a lot in this video is that I think this game is trying to evolutionize the genre, which quite honestly I think is much needed. This genre just kind of feels more of the same, if not with the only real difference being, hey, let's make it harder, let's make it more tactical. Versus this is kind of like, how about instead of just making it harder, what can we add to the gameplay loop to make it more interesting and different? Where has some of our competitors kind of like slept on? Like, because for example, as somebody who was a big Cold War fan, I really liked Outbreak for what it was and the idea. I thought it wasn't executed to the best, and it kind of felt kind of tacked on like last minute. But the concept was there, which I thought was super interesting. And then they kind of went overboard with it with the Warzone zombie stuff. That was too big. And I think this kind of takes that idea. It's like, hey, let's actually make it look like a apocalypse. Let's actually make it look like um, a zombie atmosphere and not just a half baked feature. And I think that was a good direction to go in because that's something no one else is quite doing outside of your Helldivers. But Helldivers kind of has its own special unique thing with the call-ins and things like that. Overall, I will say that the demo for this game was honestly really fun. I really enjoyed my time with it. And quite honestly, it sold me on the game. Like I definitely want to play more of this. Granted, I am a sucker for co-op shooters, co-op horde shooters too. I think it's really fun to kind of play with some buddies, coordinate with one another, and just try to survive. Like I love that gameplay loop, and this was, like I said, a game I've been following for a while. I was already kind of like wanting to get it, but after playing the demo, I think it kind of solidified for me. I'm like, okay, this game is kind of legit. It can really compete with the guys. So they can get the right marketing behind it and kind of push this game more. Hopefully it could take off. That's kind of the toughest part of it all. But if you just want something to play with your friends, go check out the demo. It's really fun. And then if you want to play more of it, I believe the game is going to be coming out March 19th. You might want to double check me on that, but somewhere around mid March. But yeah, are you picking it up? Let me know. Is the zombie genre too like crowded, or is it too outplayed? Is it too late for this game to come out? That's another question some people might have. But anyways, if you guys like the content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.